coming through when the growth look good on you. Best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep fitting in.
Yes, people. We are back in the building. We are back in the building. I hope everyone's had a great weekend. Guys, before we even dive into everything, please, as I always say at the beginning of every video, please make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. If you have subscribed already, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Please make sure you're smashing those like buttons. Make sure as well that we will be doing a tactics board, tactical analysis over on the Jerry James show. So make sure you guys watch out for that. That should be very, very interesting. Yeah, let's just dive into it. As you guys can see, obviously, title of the video, a leopard can't change its spots. Liverpool 0, Brighton 3. Where do we even begin now? Where do we even begin? You know, I had a brilliant weekend, you know, just a little bit of a backstory. You know, I had a brilliant weekend, you know, a little fun family, you know, weekend, pretty good. Enjoyed my time, got home in the evening, thought, you know what, wasn't on my phone the entire day. Wanted to kind of stay away from the football and stuff like that. Just wanted to have some fun. Got home and, you know, I saw the scoreline. And, yeah, that was interesting. I thought 3-0, bloody hell. You know, how do we even unpack this, to be honest with you? But, you know, all jokes aside, you know, that's 2 losses on the bounce now for Liverpool after going 4 in a row, 4 wins in a row. To be honest with you, you know, I had quite a few people DM me. It was like, you know, oh, what do you think? And, you know, what's your reaction? And, you know, all of these kind of things. And I was like, to be honest with you, it's one of those things where, you know, and I think quite a lot of Liverpool fans that, you know, I saw a lot, and I do mean a lot, even the people who, you know, want to give it the old, you know, just keep supporting the club and all this kind of stuff. You know, even they were a bit, you know, pessimistic about the game anyway. You know, I saw a lot of people say Liverpool lose and, you know, things like that. And that's not nice at all. That's not, let's be clear. That's not something that you want to be going into every game and thinking, you know, that your team's going to lose. You know, we're not bloody Norwich. You know, we're not a team who goes up and down the Championship and Premier League who, you know, are fighting every single week for wins. But this season, it's kind of like that, you know, being so inconsistent with our results. One week, you know, you're beating Manchester City. The next week, you know, you're losing to Nottingham Forest. You know, one week you're beating Newcastle in the last minute. Next minute, you know, you're losing to Leeds. You know, it's been just a season of just pure inconsistency, you know, for Liverpool. And yesterday, to be honest, I mean, like most people, I wasn't that surprised when I did come home and see the result, 3-0. I think I was more surprised with some of the stats and stuff that I saw. And guys, you know, you've seen it already. Check it out if you haven't. You know, possession, shots at goal, shots on target, forward passes, and, you know, all of these different things. You know, I was more probably shocked at that because usually that's something that we keep quite high even in defeat. But, you know, yesterday's game, it told a lot. Excuse me, it told a lot. It did tell a lot, you know, in regards to, of course, you know, it had to be Brighton first and foremost. Firstly, well, before we even get into that, Brighton are a very good team. Let's make no mistake about that. They are a very, very good team. They have some really, really good players. De Zerbi, you know, coming in after Graham Potter, you know, which is funny because, you know, a lot of people looked at that and thought to themselves, not that Brighton would turn out to be rubbish or anything like that. I think it's just more, you know, how's he going to do? You know, new league, you know, players, hasn't played, you know, hasn't managed in this league before in this country. You know, what's he going to be like? Is he going to be able to continue the, you know, the good work that, you know, Graham Potter had done? You know, but if I'm being honest and speaking again to, you know, other Brighton fans, some of them, not all, of course, but some of them, you know, they're telling me that, you know, he seems to be a better manager, you know, than Graham Potter. Now that might just be because of the foundations that Graham Potter, you know, kind of set for Brighton. And that is very, very key, especially when you're a team like Brighton, not, being in the Premier League isn't something that they're used to in the last few seasons, of course, but, in totality, they're not really a team who you would think, oh, that's a Premier League team, like like a Nottingham Forest of back in the day, where you're like, all right, this looks kind of right. They're in the Premier League, back where they belong. Leeds United, another team, back in the Premier League, back where they belong, things like that. And when I'm thinking of Brighton, from how they started to where they are now, everything about their club, everything about what they do behind the scenes, the players they get in, the managers and things like that, it just seems to be just going up and up and up. And, they're on a steady build. I don't want to get too carried away with Brighton. I don't want to start saying, they'll get Europe. They could get Europe, obviously leapfrog Liverpool with that victory. But, for me, why I find it funny is just, like I said, with the foundations that Potter set for the club. Now, obviously, of course, they've got different goals than Liverpool. Of course they do. So, they're not about trying to win the Premier League or get into Champions League places and things like that. So, the work that they try and do is to obviously build to eventually, I'm assuming, get to that point. And, at the moment, they're well on their way. How long that takes, I have no idea. Obviously, they're up against some real heavyweights, financially and just in terms of clubs and history and things like that. I mean, even Nottingham Forest have spent a buckload. But again, just because you spend the money doesn't mean that, you're automatically going to be, good. To be honest with you, you've got to spend that money really, really wisely. Again, Nottingham Forest, probably the key example in the Premier League. Chelsea, another one. Spend bucket loads of money. Even though I do like a bit of what Chelsea are doing in terms of some of the young players, but, that's a story for another day. And why I say all of that is because, a lot of people have spoken about Klopp. Obviously, he's under pressure. There's no two ways about it. Anybody says any different, don't listen to him. It's plain and simple. He's under a lot of pressure at this current moment in time. The team is performing badly, like really, really badly. Some people say it's the 7-year curse. Mine's 7 years there. The team kind of became stale. Dortmund, 7 years there, the team kind of became stale. And Liverpool, now it's happening here, 7 years here and the team is now becoming stale. And there always seems to be an excuse as to why, I hear a lot of people, there's always excuse. There's always going to be an excuse. Klopp's a very good manager. They're a very, very good manager. And his record does speak for itself. Particularly at Dortmund and obviously now, at Liverpool. This isn't a guy who hasn't won anything. This is a guy who's won multiple trophies. So, to anything less than that would be doing him a disservice first and foremost. But, I think Liverpool fans are all over, the question you keep getting asked, and I'll do a video, possibly with Jerry and Roms, in regards to that, who's going to take over if Klopp was to walk away and, things like that. And I think that's always the wrong way to look at things, It's either Klopp FC or it's Liverpool FC. And the last time I checked, it was Liverpool Football Club. It wasn't Klopp Football Club. So, whether Klopp was to stay or go, whatever, it doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. I think people are focusing on the wrong things. Now, of course, I'm not saying, go to matches and absolutely slander the guy. I'm not necessarily saying that. But, for those who keep asking, and I see it in chats, I see it in DMs and things like that, in conversations on Twitter, all these, but who'd you get in? No one can work under these owners, blah, blah, blah. First and foremost, you have zero idea. You don't know who could work under these owners. There are a lot of managers, and I do mean a lot of managers out there who could potentially work under these owners. Now, just depends on what type of direction you're trying to take the club in. Where you see the club, how you see the club, the type of manager, who's then available to you then can differ. You can go from your Tuchels, your Enriques, your Zidans, your, people like that to like your Pochettinos. You got Spalletti over at Napoli. Of course, he won't leave mid-season. And I'm not talking about a mid-season cut, by the way, when I speak about Jurgen Klopp. As I said, the title of the video is called The Leopard Can't Change Its Spots. And we're seeing week in, week out, the same thing. Now, Klopp spoke after the game, in regards to, he tried to change it up a little bit and things like that. I was then checking, I watched the game back in full. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was painful. I watched the game back in full. Then, listened to his press conference. Then I went, just checked out some of the stats and things like that, looking at the heat maps and all those kind of small little things. And, he says we changed it up. I mean, things don't really add up there. But, if he said he changed it up, he changed it up. Or who am I to who am I to dismiss what he's saying? He is the manager, of course. But everything was the same. Everything about that game was the same. Hence the reason why the result wasn't too surprising. Like I said, Brighton are a very good team, and under De Zerbi especially, they've been performing really, really well, and they play some of the best football in the Premier League. You know, some of the, the best football in the Premier League, players like McAllister, you've got Solly March, one of the underrated players. Obviously Caicedo, the goalkeeper, Sanchez, I think his name was, they've got players all around. So it's not like this is a team who are just made up of a bunch of nobodies. This is a decent team. So Liverpool did have a fight on their hands, and they usually do when they do face Brighton. Yeah, we've had some good wins in the past. But, they've always been relatively tough. There hasn't been, not always been a walk in the park. Maybe one result I can think off the top of my head where I thought, okay, yeah, that was really decisive. But, they kind of remind me of what the Southampton used to be. That team where you're like, if there's any team who can break into that mold of teams, it'd probably be like a Brighton. It would be, not counting Newcastle, because obviously Newcastle are now, been kind of put into that kind of mold now of bigger teams, just obviously because of the financial backing and, things like that. But yeah, the game itself, I mean, there isn't really much to even realistically say. I mean, it was all the same kind of thing. Errors, midfield, non-existent. The attack was just toothless. I don't want to get into him. He only just joined the club in Cody Gakpo. But it's like I'm watching him, and I do feel sorry for him. I genuinely do, because you came into a team who are just all over the gaff and have no real sense of identity, which is quite funny. But he's come into the team, and I'm hoping other Liverpool fans weren't thinking this. Even the most optimistic fan, would be able to use their brain. I don't think anyone thought he was going to come in and do a Luis Diaz where he was just going to galvanize everybody. We're too far gone for that. We're not going to get a signing, like that, who's just going to come into the squad and just all of a sudden, poof, it's just going to click. But I am watching it, and I'm, like I said, feel sorry for him, but I'm struggling to see what he even adds. We're not a team. Yesterday, obviously, and telling a different story, but we're not really a team who struggle to score goals and things like that. Obviously, we've got injuries, of course. So, in terms of squad depth, I get it. But it's just, yeah, like I said, I don't want to get into Cody Gakpo because it's got nothing to do with him at all. We were missing Nunes as well. So that might have, potentially, I still believe the result would have been the same with Nunes. Maybe we might have scored though. Just due to his chaos and things like that. I saw a lot of people talk about Diaz and Jota and Van Dijk missing. Would we have lost that game in the form that we're in? Yeah, I can still see a loss. I think people are forgetting that all of those players that I just named, Van Dijk, Diaz and Diogo Jota, they've all been a part of this absolute shit show of Liverpool this season. They've all played quite a bit as well. Do you know what I mean? Maybe not so much Jota, but Diaz has, Van Dijk has, Nunes has. They've all played. They've all been there. They've all been a part of, some of the poorest results we've seen for this club. So, I definitely don't agree with that, if they were there, we would have potentially won and we'd be a lot better. No, not necessarily. The evidence tells you that, it would have just turned out the exact same, if I'm being, totally honest with you. And yeah, it's Klopp after the game, saying sorry to the fans and things like that. I mean, thanks for saying sorry. I don't really care, to be honest with you. I've gone past all of that kind of stuff. You're the manager, sort it out on the pitch. He talks about, not being, stuff like, not getting second balls and challenges, not really getting there. And you're watching the team and, someone put up like little stills of the game and little passages of play that Brighton had. And I think one of them was for the goal as well. And, the way that Brighton pressed, the way that Brighton were able to get themselves out of passes. My thing with Klopp, I keep saying it. Like, I'm not even going to scream out Klopp out or anything like that. It's first of all, it's beyond that anyway. But secondly, it's not really even about that. It's, you have a job to do as a manager, and your job as a manager is to get the best out of the players that you've got available. Let's stop using the injuries excuse. If you want to see a real injury list of players who are basically not there, go to Chelsea. That's why they are where they are at this current moment in time. You know, I've seen some of the squads that Chelsea have put out, you know, this season. And I can understand why fans might not agree with it. They might not like it and think, oh yeah, we've got enough to be able to do this, that and the third. But they don't. They don't. You know, if they were honest with themselves, they would see that. You know, some of the squads and teams that they've put out, yeah, you've got flashy names, but it just doesn't really work for what you're trying to do. Liverpool, in some games, yes, maybe, but in most, I definitely don't agree with that. I think we've had in most games, to be honest with you, like, and I'm talking about the ones that we've lost or drawn. In most of them, we've had pretty good squads. Leeds, we had a good squad. Brighton, we had a good squad. Can't even remember all the other losses. We had Leeds, Brighton, obviously the two that we've just got now. Brentford, we had a good squad. You know, we seem to have had these good squads anyway, but for some weird reason, it's just not working. And what I'm disliking about Klopp, and again, it's like my last video, check it out if you haven't, you know, Ideology Monsters, is that, you know, you're not willing to change your ideology. No problem. No, I'm not going to fight you on that anymore. Do you know what I mean? It is what it is with that. But then you're going to keep getting bad results. It's not really going to matter. You know, people were talking about getting in one midfielder. One midfielder is not going to do anything for this team. You know, it's not going to do what you think or what you hope it should do. You know, come in and all of a sudden we get this one Jude Bellingham and then poof, it just like that. It just switches. That's not how it works in football, unfortunately, guys. You know, Liverpool, like I said, they're bereft of just ideas. The management it just seems like anything he's trying to do, whatever he wants to do, it's just not working. Like, honestly, it just isn't working. And it's like, yeah, it's like seeing that guy from the ends, you know, who was the top dog, and, you know, he used to walk, he had a flashy car, he had the nicest girl, and, you know, you still kind of want to be like him. You know, like other clubs, they want to be like Liverpool, the way they would run, you know, our scouting and all these kind of various different things. You know, you just want to be just like Liverpool. You know, let's try and do our business just like Liverpool do. And now you're looking at them and you're just like, damn, man, like, you know, what happened to you? You know, like 50 Cent says, damn, homie. In high school, you used to be the man, homie. You know, it's that kind of thing. Now I'm looking at you and I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, wow, like, you know, you really have just gone off the boil. And the thing is, you're seeing it in press conferences, the way that he snaps and things like that. I always say that's always quite telling, because a lot of managers who are on their way out, that's usually the way that they go. Now, I'm not saying that Klopp couldn't potentially, when I say change it around, I'm not even talking about this season. For me, this season is kind of a write-off. His only claim could be by winning, you know, the Champions League. If he wins the Champions League, maybe you might be able to see something. Again, that would just be cup competitions, one-off games. For me, that's not really a true measure of an individual, to be honest. It's always the league that I look at, always, because the league is a 38-game season. You know, you're going to have good periods like every team. You're going to have bad periods like every team. You're going to have some meaty periods. You're going to have periods where you're not even playing that well, but you can get the win. All of these kind of stuff. But for Liverpool, it's just been so inconsistent. And Klopp just doesn't seem to know what the hell to do, whether the players are listening to it anymore. You know, this is a team who are constantly the bridesmaids, you know, to Manchester City during that era. You know, we saw Manchester City lose, you know, and it's funny because people, you know, say Manchester City are not as good as they were last season. You know, up until yesterday, they were only 5 points off. I think now depending on what happens with the Arsenal game, obviously I'm doing this video before it. So depending on what happens with that game, you know, they could be 8, I believe it is. You know, Manchester United come back into the race, but they're still pretty close to that top of the table. You know, so they're not falling off that badly. We hold them to like really, really high standards and things like that. But Liverpool have dropped off dramatically. People say, you know, it's the hangover from last season. You know, that's down to management anyway. You know, I'm not gonna, you know, shy away from that like other people are doing, you know, and use the excuses of, oh, it's the owners, you know, because no one complains at the owners when we were winning. No one was complaining at the owners when they could see that Liverpool had a clear, so to speak, kind of route into what we were trying to do as a football club. No one was complaining at all. Nobody was saying anything. Yeah, a few people talking about it, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to act like there wasn't one individual out there. Of course there were. You're going to have people who are just not happy, you know, with the owners, you know, and I said this I said this on Twitter yesterday, and I said, will people be mad if they don't sign Jude Bellingham? Now, for me, it would just be embarrassing for Liverpool as a whole. But are you going to turn around and be mad if they don't sign Jude Bellingham? So if they don't fork out over 100 million on one player, you know, when this one player cannot come into the team and just change it straight, you know, just like that, he's going to need others in around him. Now, if Liverpool can do that, maybe we can start talking about, you know, Liverpool and for next season and etc., etc. We don't know. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. We have to wait and see with that. Hence the reason why I'm kind of keeping quiet on that in itself. But at this current moment in time, it doesn't look like that. So I ask, are people going to be mad if the owners don't spend that money when we could be using that money a bit more wisely, to be honest with you? You know, like I said, you know, Klopp does need the help. He does need to, you know, he probably does need a bit more help from the owners, of course. You know, of course, who doesn't want more money? You know, that would be a silly thing for me to say, but I've got to look at you on the football field, and I've got to ask myself, if I was a new investor, would I be looking at Klopp and thinking to myself, yeah, this is the guy I want us to take. This is the guy I want to take us forward. You know, he's leaving at 2026. Team's in a bad state, so it's going to cost me a lot of money anyway to get this team, you know, back up to a position whereby they can compete anyway with the likes of your Cities, with your Arsenals, with your Newcastle, your Manchester United. That's 4 teams. That's 4 teams. You know, it was easier when we just had Man City to worry about. It was only us two, so it's not that hard. You know, everyone else wasn't ready yet. Newcastle didn't have the money. Arsenal didn't spend, and they just got in a new manager. There was no Manchester United because they were going through the absolute shits. You know, City are City, so they're always going to be there regardless. You know, even if they finish second or third, you know, they're probably going to finish second at this rate now. But, you know, it was a lot easier back then. And then you got Chelsea, who are still willing to spend money. So it's like I start to sit there and think to myself, so what do people realistically want? Do they want the owners to spend money like they don't want FSG to realistically come out and start spending money like Chelsea, for example? Or, you know, there's other clubs out there who have spent more, but those other clubs need to spend more. In accordance to Jurgen Klopp, those clubs need to kind of spend a lot more money because they're trying to get to our position. So of course you're going to see that. Hence the reason why I don't really always look at comparing us to a West Ham or a Villa or any. Of course they're going to spend more money. You know, any person with a brain would tell you that. You know, that they need to spend more money because they're trying to get to our position. Why would we spend the same amount if we're already in that position? We just need to be able to spend that money that we do have a lot more wisely. Like I said, you know, Klopp in the summer, you know, he reeled off all the midfielders he had. Said he was good. You know, got one injury, it just completely changed. You know, he spent 65 on an attacker. You know, could that money have been spent a bit more wisely? Who knows? Spent 37 to 40 on another attacker because of it, another injury. Could that money have been spent a bit more wisely? Who knows? You know what I mean? Like, who knows? Like I said, I'm beyond all of that. Looking at the money side of things, I'm just looking at Jurgen Klopp tactically, and right now he hasn't got an absolute Scooby. He does not have a Scooby-Doo as to what the hell to do with the team. The teams he is picking out, you know, honestly, I'm just at that stage now where every game now I'm just looking, and forget about winning the game. Just play well. I don't care about the winning of the match anymore. We've gone past that now because, you know, he had a lucky win against Leicester and everyone got excited about, oh, you know, we can get these wins and blah, blah, blah. And look where we are now. Look where we are now. You know, we've been outfought, outworked, you know, tactically outworked by both Thomas Frank and De Zerbi. You know, 2 good managers who know how to utilize the players that they've got. And at the moment, Jurgen Klopp isn't doing that. And if people don't want to be honest with themselves in regards to that, that's up to them. You know, there's no point fighting with individuals who believe in one thing. Like, I believe in this, so it's going to be difficult for someone to then try and change my mind. I'm one of those seeing is believing individuals. So if I see a change, then of course, if I could see that Jurgen Klopp was trying to do something different, then I'd say, oh, you know what? You know what I mean? Just give him some time, man. Like, you know, he's a new manager. He's just come in. A bit like Graham Potter. You know, he's a new manager. Give him some time. Let him get his own players first and foremost. And then we can really judge him. Jurgen Klopp's been here 7 years, man. 7 years. He signed a new deal under these premises. Now, unless FSG have obviously broken any promises that they've given Klopp, that's a different story. We don't know that. We can only go on what we do know, which is that he signed a deal under the premises of what he was originally working on. Maybe a tad bit more money, but under the same kind of deal. He was the one who came out to the media and said, I will get that deal sorted out for Jordan Henderson. He was the one who wanted to keep James Milner in and around the football club. He made that choice between Mo Salah and Sadio Mane, alongside Sadio Mane obviously wanting to leave because he felt that it was the right time, which in itself is quite funny. You know, he is one of the key reasons why we keep, you know, a Keita and an Ox around, you know, for so long, because obviously it adds the bodies. He is the one who decided to buy a right winger and turn him into a central midfielder, even though he sent him out on loan to be a right winger. He is the one who decided that he wanted to get one of our academy products who was predominantly a left winger / attacking midfielder, but turn him into a central midfielder. You know, he is the one making these decisions. So I don't understand why people are so... Like, I'm struggling anyway to understand, you know, why people look at it and be like, oh, well, how could you say that? You know, Klopp's done so much for this football club and blah, blah, blah. And football moves on. People need to start understanding. Football moves on. If you move correctly, you'll be fine. Klopp is not the only manager out there. He's a very good manager. He's a very, very good manager. Works in specific projects. He's a project manager. Get him, you know, he's the one who builds, I think, Tom Little, big up yourself. Like, he mentioned it. You know, he's the guy who builds, like, your foundation. You know, if you was buying a house and you need someone to kind of do, you know, do the foundation of it, Klopp's the guy to do that. He'll do a absolute banging job. But I'm not going to get him to then fix my flipping roof. I'm not going to get him to fix other parts of the house, because that's not what he's there for. That's not what he's there for. You know, his remit was to get Liverpool back up to the top, which I think he has done. You know, but right now, at this current moment in time, I'm not seeing anything from him. And I mean this on the pitch. Forget about the outside stuff. Forget about the transfer stuff. That's a whole different story. And that's a whole different argument, which I hope one day we're able to, you know, finally hear the end of, whether it's the owners going or giving more money, whatever. I don't really care. I'm looking at you on the pitch and you look like you do not have a Scooby-Doo what the hell you're doing. We play one of the worst football in the Premier League. We are so vulnerable, you know, as a team. And I would have thought, you know, by now, you know, after seeing some of these results and you can see these guys in training, which makes me laugh because you see them in training. We don't. Yeah, we might watch a little inside training and that, but that's nothing compared to what you're actually seeing on a consistently daily basis. But yet you go out and do the same things over and over again. So, you know, it is what it is, really and truly, when it comes to Jurgen Klopp. He's never going to change in his way of thinking, and that's fine. If he's able to get the players to do it, all of a sudden he becomes this amazing manager. And, you know, we've done a show on the Jerry James show, you know, Miracle Man or, what was it? Miracle Worker or Money Man or something like that. Money Man or Miracle Worker. And it's like, you know, everyone, you know, gets onto your Peps and your Chelseas and your Uniteds. Oh, these guys, they're able to spend money. He has to spend money too. Klopp can't do it. Klopp didn't win the Premier League with bloody Burnley, guys. You know, let's wake up and smell the bloody coffee. You know, he didn't win the league with Burnley. He didn't do it Leicester. That is a miracle. That is an actual miracle. Winning the league with that team. They performed at some crazy level. And yes, a lot of teams, your Man Cities, your Liverpools, your Arsenals, whoever at that time were performing really, really badly. But they had to go out there and do it. And they did it. Claudio Ranieri. What happened? He got sacked. He got sacked soon after. You know, because the team could never keep up that kind of level. That was a miracle. Liverpool winning the league wasn't a miracle. You had Van Dijk, supposedly one of the best centre-backs, if not the best centre-back. You had Alisson, the best goalkeeper. You had the best right back. By the way, this is all Klopp's words. The best left back. You know, some of the best midfielders. Best defensive midfielder. Best wingers. Best striker. You know, it's like people act like this guy woke up and got Burnley to the top of the Premier League, won it, and, you know, on a absolute shoestring budget where you could only spend $1 million on players like Everton have had to do when they under Rafa Benitez. Let's stop being so naive, man. It's embarrassing. We look stupid by saying these things because it's like you're crying wolf over what? You know, over what? If your manager really thought that there was an issue in midfield, he would have looked at a midfielder way before he looked at an attacker, regardless of the injuries and attack, regardless. Because he's got other players to play there. He's got other players who can play that position. Might not be nowhere near as good as the ones who originally played there, but you've got other players to play there. You don't have those options in midfield because we've tried all of them. We've literally tried every single midfielder you can think of at the club, bar Arthur Melo, who's played, 13 minutes. but yet you still think that there isn't too much of an issue, and we're still going to hang our hat on, you know, trying to get Jude Bellingham and potentially changing things around, you know. So look, I'm not gonna go on too long. I think for me personally, it's just a case now where just take each game as it comes, to be honest with you. As I say, the title of the video, Leopard can't change its spots. He can't change his spots. He ain't going to. So, you know, get used to some of these results. This is going to become the norm between now and the end of the season. So it's just one of them kind of things, man. It honestly is just one of them kind of things. And it's just something that we just, as a fan base and as a club, we just got to get used to. I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not sitting there saying we got to go out here and start getting Klopp banners and things like that. Like, for me, I'm not really that bothered anymore, to be honest with you, because, like I said, I watch very closely what he does, what he says, how he says it, how he does things, how he looks on the touchline, you know, how the players responding, all these little things. And I'm seeing nothing. I'm seeing absolutely nothing from this manager. I'm seeing absolutely nothing from this team. And look, it's not just him. These players are absolutely doing him a disservice, but they're also doing themselves a disservice. You know, these are players who are supposed to be going for the quadruple last season. You know, are you trying to tell me that you've had that much of a bloody hangover? Or is it a mentality thing? Is it sick and tired of, you know, hearing the same message, but not really being able to get over the line consistently year after year after year? It must get boring. It must be boring. I can only imagine, you know, being at work and your manager telling you, no, keep doing this, keep doing this, keep doing this. And by the end of the quarter, you don't quite get that bonus. But he keeps telling you, no, keep doing it. It will work. It will work. You keep doing it. You still don't get that. You still don't get the bonus every single quarter. And you're sitting there thinking, fucking hell, mate. You know, you've been telling us this for about 6 years, mate. You know, we still haven't done it. You know, we had a good 2-year period. You know, a decent little 2-year period. Won all those trophies. Won 3 or 4 in one season. You know, which skews the ratio and stuff like that. But you won 3 or 4 in one season. What about outside of that? You know, what about now? When things are not going so well, how do you fix that? How do you fix that? Because you keep talking about the solutions are not in the transfer market. No worries. No one's arguing with you with that. Nobody's arguing with you with that. But there doesn't even seem to be a solution on the training pitch. Training is our transfer. Something that gets obviously said, or something that has been said by Pep Yenders. Training is our transfer. What the hell are you doing in training? You went away to Dubai to do what? Like, what the hell? You've come back worse than you was even prior to Dubai, which I didn't even think was even possible. But here we are today. Here we are today, sitting in 9th place, just in front of Chelsea on 3 points. If they beat us, they go level on points with us. Goal difference, obviously, unless they smash us, but goal difference would probably mean we'd stay ahead of them. But we're below Fulham, we're below Brighton, below Newcastle, United, Tottenham, Arsenal, City. You know, so for me, like I said, man, I'm not trying to bash Jurgen Klopp, man. Like I said, he's done a very, very good job up until this point. But anytime he's faced with any adversity, he's like, he just is not the guy, man. He doesn't know what to do. He just really doesn't know what to do, and it's so obvious. But you know, it is what it is. People say, you know, you got an agenda or whatever. It is what it is, man. I can only state the facts. I can only state the facts of the matter. But let's wait and see. I think we've got Wolves in the FA Cup, I believe, in the replay next. Funnily enough, if we win that game, we've got Brighton after that, which is quite hilarious. So let's wait and see. Let's see what Klopp says over the next coming days. Let's see how the team responds. Will they, you know, Liverpool really don't want to go on a 3-4 game losing run, to be honest with you. That will really, things will really start turning nasty if they haven't already, you know, to be honest with you. So let's wait and see, man. But at the moment, like I said, man, Liverpool are an embarrassment this season, so far anyway. And like I said, the only real way that they would be able to redeem themselves, so to speak, is you'd have to get top 4, which I'm embarrassed to even mention that. Like, that just sounds icky. You have to get top 4, and you're gonna have to win a Champions League, to be honest with you, because outside of that, what else are you doing? You know, what else are you going to do? And winning the Champions League might seem like our best bet of actually getting in there next season. So yeah, like I said, man, let's wait and see. Let's hope Klopp grows some, you know what, and can change things around. You know, take players out if you have to. We might not like it as fans. We might say, oh, why did you change it? Just change it. Do something. Right now, it's like, you know, talking to a brick wall. at the moment. You know, seeing this team and seeing the manager just doing the same things over and over again, performing the same way, but continuing to do it. It's just like, what is so great, you know, about this, you know, and I can guarantee, you know, Darwin Núñez, whether, I don't know how long he's injured for, you know, another thing that gets just kept quiet in the background. But let's say he comes back for the next Premier League game, he scores, we potentially win. People are then going to say, oh, but if we had Darwin Núñez last weekend, then we would have beaten. No, we wouldn't have. No, we wouldn't have, man. And I'm just bored and tired of hearing so many people just so blinded by their love and loyalty for someone that, you know, it's like you don't want to see what's really there in front of your faces. But ultimately, you know, these are all things that I said at the beginning of the season, alongside Jerry, alongside Romsel, alongside others. But, you know, we'll wait and see, man. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. And this isn't something I wanted to be right about in the first place. I told you that the team were going to falter, you know, this season, you know, from the summer because of the way we were conducting our business. I told you about the cracks in there. We've seen Michael Edwards leave. We're seeing Julian Ward going to leave. I told you there was going to be all these kind of things happening. I didn't think that was going to happen. I just knew that there was things were just rumbling in the background, and I didn't want to be right about that. I knew Liverpool weren't going to be as good as they were in terms of where they are in the league and stuff like that as last season. I knew we couldn't keep up another challenge like that unless you refresh the squad, you know, quite a bit. Because the squad was just down on its knees by the end of last season. And you could see it in the last few games of that season where individual brilliance, as I keep saying, was what was getting us through these games. But, you know, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. We're here now. Just enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride, man. But, you know, that's my video. Like I said at the beginning, a leopard can't change its spots. Klopp ain't going to do that. So, you know, anyone who's looking at formation changes, forget about it. You know, we could sit here and do 3-5-2s, 3-4-3s, 1-10s if we want. Like, it's not going to make any difference, to be honest with you, because we know he's just going to keep it the same. And he's going to be doing the same thing. So, yeah, let's wait and see. That's the end of the video, guys. That's the end of the video, guys. Make sure you smash a like. If you haven't already, if you have obviously watched until the end of this video, I thank you and I appreciate that. Please make sure you share this out. We need to have, I was going to say we need to have more conversations, but we don't. We all know what's up. What more can realistically be said that hasn't been said already? So, you know, it's just enjoy the ride, guys. Honestly, just enjoy the ride. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. But I'm G and I am out.